future book.
Right, today's video brings us back to the Rossendale Valley. We're going to be on the Rossendale and Burnley boundary in the village of Clowbridge, which used to be Hapton. And this video can tap on quite nicely to the one that we did about Berkeley Hills. And we're going to be looking at the old burnt Hills Colliery, which is situated just along the Burnley Road or Manchester Road, wherever you come from. And it's situated along here. Goes back to at least 1820. Now, many people, when we talk about coal mining in this area, it's a very popular area for walking, and people will park the cars on Limey Lane here, the old Limers Gate, and they'll walk through the old Gambleside village, look at the old pumping pit, and then visit the old Gambleside colliery. But how many think of the pits that were on this side? Where exactly is the Burnt Hills Colliery? Well, if we look at it from this angle, above the reservoir from the Gambleside end, we're looking at the area of Burnt Hills. Now, the area got its name through the iron deposits, and certainly 30-40 years ago you could really see them in these quarries behind. They were really red. And the Burnt Hills Colliery that we know of dates from 1826 at least, possibly before that, owned by the Col John Hargreaves, and it was in this locality. But where we're going, the shaft was sunk around about 1853, and it's here. This is Cotton Row. Now, I always thought for a start Cotton Row was maybe weavers' cottages, but they're not, are they? So how did it get that name, Cotton Row? This is the Burnt Hills Colliery. The gas retort, the gate post is there, and these were part of, well, these houses were built in 1880 according to Paddy, who now lives there. So that is, the pit was sunk 1853, and we have census reports of the manager, James Joblin, and others living in houses on here. So these possibly aren't the original houses. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but this is where the shaft was, round about the back of here, and it was 375 feet deep, as we will learn. But also this area was kept open as a coal yard, a coal stave, for the coal coming across from Hapton Valley Colliery. Because originally Burnt Hills coal, a lot of it was sent to Berkeley Hills for coking, but coal came this way as well to feed the mills in Clowbridge. So this was kept open for a coal stave long after the colliery closed. Now, as well as the shaft there, we've certainly found through research that there was also a shaft here that I thought predated the old pit, but it doesn't. It's been it was worked at the same time. And the older pit actually is on the hills behind. I haven't had a chance yet to go up and have a good proper look to see what's left. But while we were here, we took the greatest opportunity to go out across and have a look as well at Wallen Nuk Colliery. And the pit there at Wallen Nuk was actually in the same coal as Burnt Hills, but it was a different royalty. And it's actually situated just here. There's a collection of engine beds, and you can still see where the old shaft was. So let's have a look on a map and find Burnt Hills, and we can get a better view. So we see on the 1891 map, we can see where the two shafts was. There's the Burnt Hills Colliery and the houses, the coal yard, and this is the other shaft that was working at the same time and possibly dates from a bit earlier. Look, you can see an old trackway down to the road. We don't know if that was a tramway or just a horse cart road, but can you see that lay-by there where there was a little bit of a colliery set there as well. So we've got the Burnt Hills pit. There's Cotton Row. Here's the actual coal yard and the houses still there. The old shaft, the Burnt Hills shaft, 375 feet deep. And then we've got the end of the tramway that goes all the way across to Hapton Valley Colliery, through the quarry past Ironshire, up the hill to Porter's Gate Colliery. Again, like I said, Porter's Gate was actually part of Burnt Hills. It came under that banner. There was two shafts up there, nowhere near as deep. I think they're only about 120 feet thereabouts down to the lower mountain, and a drift into the upper mountain. And that then ran right across the hillside, right down to Hapton Valley, or at the time this was map was done, it's the old Spa pit, the old number 1 and 2 pit. Can we see there the turn? The Ginny sent up past what is that now is a cemetery, up what is now Billington Road, across the cross Rosendale Road to the courtworks at Berkeley Hills, massive courtworks, and then down on another Ginny towards Smallshire, under the railway, or maybe it is to the railway. No, it's under the railway. The old Smallshire Colliery as well, and then the coal stayed down by Ganner Bridge. So from where you see at Burnt Hills, there's not a continuous Ginny, but you can see how that pit is connected right across the hillside to Hapton Valley. Isn't that great, isn't it? And we can see the old pit on the 1840 map. There we are. That's where Burnt Hills would be. Not there at the time, is it? I don't know what that building is though, but that is where the colliery is going to be. But we can see there's one of the old pits. Remember, one time this was also a main road, and we can see these pits up here working in the 1840s because they're actually down as coal pit. And if you look at that one, there's a building there and a reservoir. That makes us think it probably had a steam engine. I don't think it's a water wheel, it'd be a steam engine there. And this is Hennets from 1828. And we can see there's our little road up towards Ironutshire there, and it puts the Burnt Hills Colliery up here, a shaft there and a shaft there as well. So this is 1828, so it's working quite a way up on the side of the hill there. Alright, let's get down on the ground and have a look at other things. Just a short video. Today we're in Abergameaves, or Dunnockshire, Clybridge, whichever way you look at it. And we've been invited to come and have a look at some of the remains of the Burnt Hills Colliery by the guy that lives in the house now. And Burnt Hills, quite descriptive really. Burnt Hills, I think the name comes from all the iron deposits that used to be on the hill and amongst the stone. Now Burnt Hills we know goes back to at least the 1820s, but in a different location to where it was the location we're going to look at, and it was one of Col John Hargreaves' pits. It was actually just behind Nutshire Kennels for a start. So the pit we're going to look at dates from around about 1853. And the thing is with Burnt Hills, it's the deepest shaft in Rosendale. You'll say Clybridge, Dunnockshire aren't in Rosendale. Well, alright, technically they're not, but geologically they're part of the Rosendale anticline before it goes down into the Burnley Basin. So as far as I'm concerned, it's part of Rosendale. Now it was the deepest colliery shaft in this area, obviously nothing like some of the Burnley pits, but the shaft here next to Cotton Row was 375 feet down to the lower mountain mine, and 240 odd I think, maybe just a bit more, to the upper mountain. And this part of the pit worked a strip under now Clybridge Res, and up onto the hill behind. Now the original Burnt Hills worked under this lane, or towards this lane where I'm stood on now, Limey Lane, and behind on the hill. And I say it goes back to at least the 1820s, and it does appear on Lord Ashley's report. It's only 1 or 2 pits that's arguably in Rosendale, this and Tomerton Moor, that get mentioned in Ashley's report, and that Burnt Hills is on. It says how many people work here, how many kids were working here, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Sam, you're going to get knocked over. And we can see in the very windy background we've got Wallen Nuk Colliery. And interestingly, Wallen Nuk and the old Burnt Hills were at the same patch of coal, just that Wallen Nuk's down here on Townley's land, and Burnt Hills is on the other side of the road, although it's the same patch of coal. And I'm not sure exactly whose land that is, whether it's the Duke of Buccleuch's, I'm not 100% sure. But Brooks and Pickup worked Wallen Nuk around about the 1850s, the 1860s certainly, to the 1870s. Wasn't a big pit, and we've done a little bit of a video on it, but some great remains and great engine beds there. And we know that the banksman for Wallen Nuk lived on Cotton Row because of an accident, told us that. Right, here's a plan of where we're going. This is the Burnt Hills Colliery that dates from 1853 by the side of Cotton Row. That's the shaft, 375 feet down to the lower mountain and about 250 down to the upper mountain. Now the older part of the pit is situated up here somewhere, and I'm not exactly sure which bit dates from 1826. It's on Hennett's map, but it's not that clear. This is our other old shaft, and these workings are also part of the Burnt Hills. There's some different shafts as it's gone through different faults, and the pit appears on the 1840 map up here with a reservoir which shows obviously that it had a steam engine at the time. Now this is the Wallen Nuk colliery, and these are the Wallen Nuk workings. We'll go into that, who actually owned it, but can you see it's the same patch of coal as this part of Burnt Hills, but it's different owners. And there's a reservoir. I did say mistakenly to somebody that it worked under the res. Well, obviously it doesn't. The other plans I had were before the reservoir was kind of built, really. So that gives you an idea of the extremity of the Burnt Hills colliery. But Porter's Gate is up here, working coal on the other side of a fault, and it works right down next to the old workings of Hapton Valley.
See, there's quite substantial remains here, isn't there? It was just a small pit. I don't have an idea how many men worked here, but it just worked a small patch of lower mountain, and then the upper foot joined it to make the Union mine. 2, maybe 3 shafts. We've got a plan to show you, but the main shaft that's visible here, and you can see it's not very wide, as in it's not a big diameter, and it's only about 27 yards deep as well. But how many engine beds have we got? 1, 2, 3, at least 4 decent sized engine beds, and this looks like they've had a beam engine up, and on the plan it shows some substantial buildings as well.
So this is the Wallen Nuk plan, and I've got it wrong. As I said on the video, it was 27 yards deep. It's actually 32 yards deep, so there we go, I'm wrong again. It shows 2 shafts here. That's the one with the engine bed, so it's a bit it took me a bit of fathoming out this, why the engine bed is so close to the shaft, and it's not in a building. If it was a beam engine, I would have thought that it would have been in a building. This shaft is in a building, or if it's not a building, it's under a gantry. It's hard to tell which is buildings and which is gantries. And then we've got a section of it. There's a shaft going down to the coal. It shows 2 seams of coal, like it is separated by what he calls bing, which is just a band of stone. It was actually like that up at Royd Wood. Oh, hang on, here we go. The lower mountain mine depth, he says, is 29 yards there, so why is that 32? Probably down to the sump, so the coal is only 29 yards down. So that is the Wallen Nuk pit. And I think this is actually drawn by Peter Pickup, which would be absolutely fantastic. You see, it didn't work a big area up to the main road there. There's Limey Lane, and they did actually poach a bit of coal that belonged to Hargreaves as there. They got the knuckles wrapped for that. So that's the Wallen Nuk colliery.
It was Brooks and Pickup. That's Thomas Brooks, Lord Crawshaw, first baronet, all that sort of stuff, and Peter Pickup. Well, Peter was a mining engineer. His family had been involved in the mining certainly since the 1820s up on Hambledon Hill at Cupola, and Peter had all the mining engineering skills, but it was Thomas Brooks, of course, that had the money. So they'd gone into partnership up at Cupola in the 1850s, I think. I'm going to have to really make a proper effort and get myself down to Preston to the records office and really go through Peter's archive. I'm silly really for not have done it already. So I'm not sure exactly when they opened Wallen Nuk, but they were together up at Cupola, even though the pickups had been there for years before that. And Peter Pickup Senior before he got killed in the quarry. And then when they went into partnership, again, like I said, this is Townley's land. And Townley Colliery itself finishes in the fields up there near, it actually goes under Wholaw Farm. Well, Brooks and Pickup leased more land off Townley. They were in cahoots with him, and they sunk for a start around about 1860 the Boggart Brig Colliery, opposite the top gates into Townley Park. The Boggart Brig was the first, and then later on they sunk Townley itself. Now Boggart Brig, really, it was down to the King mine, and then later they were working the Upper Mountain and the Fireclay and the Union mine coming this way, on this side of the big Cliviger Valley fault. But Townley Colliery was after the prize of the Arley mine on the other side of the Cliviger Valley fault, going out like towards Worsthorne and under Townley Hall. And they've been in the Arley, obviously, up at Cupola. So this was just a little bit. And it is joined up, technically, the same patch of coal to Burnt Hills. I don't know if we're going to get to the old Burnt Hills today, but say we're going to have a wander on the 1853 pit as soon as Ronnie turns up. Right, you probably remember the gas retort off a little video we did not long ago. Well, we've got some more information. Jamie Rumson came along to our history night at Crawshire Booth, and I recommend the next time we have one you come along, generally talk on coal mining and one on the Weavers Uprising. But Jamie was telling us a tale about the gas retort. Now there used to be a lollipop man at Rakefoot School when it was a school called Eddie Law, and he used to tell the kids then, as they were in the late 60s, all sorts of stories. And Eddie said that he remembered as a kid walking up from Crawshire Booth to here, and there was a big hot air balloon, well anyway, a big balloon, and they filled it up out of that gas retort. Now is that true or is it not true? Well, it's certainly true. They came up that day for a big balloon. It was a major event, everybody walking up here to see that hot air balloon. Be interesting to know if they did get things out of the gas retort or something was stored in there to operate the balloon. It's a great story, and thanks for that, Jamie.
I think it depends on the window cleaner, to be honest.
There's a flag top here, and it does look like there's proper sockets, pedestals cut out of it, two of them. But what it's for, we haven't really got a clue. The pit shaft itself was over there, 375 feet deep, but there was a tramway from here right across the Porter's Gate Colliery and then Hapton Valley. Now, from what evidence we've got, this shaft here probably closed in the 1880s. But the coal yard stayed open. Obviously, Porter's Gate lasted to the turn of the century, but from the 1930s, we think, thereabouts, this stayed as a coal stayed. They were sending coal across from Hapton Valley. So this could be from then. And the houses date from 1880. And interestingly, the manager, James Joblin, one of the Cliviger Joblins, he lived in one of the houses as well. There's not much to see, but it's great to see what we can see. And thanks to Paddy and his next door neighbour for letting us look.
So this is the 1841 report by Lord Ashley, Shaftesbury's report into women and children underground, and this is part of the one that deals with the Burnley and Accrington pits, and thanks to Jack Nadin for sending me a copy of this. And here we have Burnt Hills Colliery, owned by the executors of the late John Hargreaves. And I don't think, as far as I can remember, that anybody made it into the book that was interviewed from this particular pit. Now, the first bit details the number of children working here. So altogether we've got 8 people between 13 and 17, which is a lot older than some of the pits. I can tell you there's some where it talks about people who started work at 4 and 5 years of age. So we've got one 13-year-old, 3 at 14, 1 at 15, 2 at 16 and 1 of 17. And it gives us a bit more information. The hours of work at this colliery are similar to those of the same proprietor which are noticed above. Well, that's going to be between 8 and 10 hours a day. It doesn't give the start times. It gives the starting times at Vicarage, which they work between 8 and 10, 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, sometimes up to 6. So we don't have an idea of when these people were, what time they started. Seams of coal are 30 inches and the height of the gates are the same, so there was no ripping. The above 8 are all coal drawers. There are also 11 adults, of whom it is stated that not one can read or write. These adults earn from 20 shillings to 24 shillings per week. No loss of life by gases or falls. Usual mode of ventilation only required. And it also says of the children, of these none can write, all can read, and all attend Sunday schools, but not public worship. Now this is interesting in something we're going to do later about one of the local preachers, which is James Maiden. And James Maiden's really interesting because he was involved in the Weavers' Uprising. Then he found religion and give his religion the same passion as he did his political sort of life in the former days. But he formed a Baptist chapel at Gambleside, which later moved into Cloudbridge, and there was a Sunday school there and a school. So there you are. None of them are attending public worship, so none of the kids are going to his chapel. But isn't it good to see the numbers that was working at the pit at the time? So 11 adults and 8 drawers. That makes altogether just under 20 people, isn't it? Whether there was also whoever was on the surface too. So here we have the Burnt Hills plan. And what is interesting about this, Cotton Row's missing. So when was Cotton Row actually built? Anyway, so this is, I'm taking this to be where Paddy now lives, and the houses are different, aren't they? It is definitely a different building than the 2 houses that are there now. Now we've got the shaft, and also there's the air pit. Now the thing is with these plans, the royalty plans, they don't show the whole colliery. And we can see it winding its way under Burnley Road there. The reservoir now is here, and it's extending towards Limey Lane there. Now the dip, according to Dickinson, is sort of this direction. So all these are working up to the rise. Now the other shaft that we could see, can you see it's there? And there is a track running down to the main road here. And if we look at the dates on this, look, 1856, 1857. And it's the same on this side as well. The dates are similar. And we go up then to where the old workings are. 1857. And they've driven here a tunnel through the stone, through this fault, and I think this is where the old pits are. Can you see, as I showed you on the 1840 map, it showed an old colliery with a building at the side of it and a reservoir. It looks to be that one. And this plan is, I think it's about 1852, because these are the only dates on it. Oops, 1852. But it says also on it that areas coloured blue are got before 1840. So if the last date on this is 1852, that means it's sunk or is working before our pit down at Burnt Hills, which you can see isn't on because there's Nutcher Farm, and it's our other shaft that goes down to the road there, showing these other workings up here. Again, they've been driving drifts to get through the faults. So that's the older Burnt Hills in the lower mountain before the shaft at next to Cotton Row was actually sunk. So here we are again. Here's part of the workings near Cotton Row. There's Cotton Row down there, well, where it's going to be. And these, it does show, are the really older workings, 1845. And interestingly, it shows old workings above these in 1842, 1843. So they're possibly the ones on Hennett's map. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of how it worked, and I'll just show you how it developed with Porter's Gate. And this is great because it shows us the whole complex. Here we've got the Burnt Hills next to a Cotton Row from the older, the older shaft there above Nutcher, and these much older workings up on the top. And we get up then to Porter's Gate. There's a tramway going up to Porter's Gate. These are the lower mountain mine. We've got the 2 shafts 45 yard deep into the lower mountain. And these are the Porter's Gate workings. It dips all the way in, it dips all the way in this way. These are the main kind of haulage roads, and this bit at the top is part of Hapton Valley. And Porter's Gate and Hapton Valley, the old Hapton Valley spent 40 years working up this side, up towards Porter's Gate, and the two pits are joined. And there's another drift coming out to the surface there along the tramway. So that gives you an idea of the complex that was working up there. And I'll just flick on to the upper mountain plans. These are the upper mountain, and the upper mountain colliery is unusual in that it's higher, it's thicker than the lower mountain, the yard mine. It's 3 foot odd, going on for 4 foot in places. You can see where they've worked it here. Not as much worked in the old pits there, because it probably doesn't exist. There's 40 yards between the upper and lower mountain mines, and then up to Porter's Gate, and it was worked by drifts going in from Porter's Gate, not by shafts. And again, we're next to the Hapton Valley workings. So there you go. That gives you a good overview of how the pit worked and where it was working. Now, I delved into the family tree of James Joblin, who was one of the first managers there at Burnt Hills. He was the manager there in the 1850s and 1860s, certainly. And the Joblins were part of the Cliviger Coal Company, or Cliviger Colliery Company. I always get mixed up between the two. All of them were involved in the pits. They were either colliery managers or land agents and surveyors. Now, his dad, Matthew, is really interesting because on the census it says that he was born on Alston Moor. Now, I can't find on this programme, on Ancestry, any of his birth and his baptism. So Simon Danby's having a look at the Alston Moor archives to see what they've got. Failing that, it's a trip to the church and find out if I can find in the baptisms where Matthew actually in Alston was born, and importantly, what his dad did. Because when they came down to Lancashire, they got involved in the coal mining industry. As I say, many of them run the Cliviger Colliery Company, others work for John Hargreaves. But I'd just like to show you this to do with one of his sons, Joseph Joblin. Now, Joseph, when he was born, it's interesting because the family, for a start, according to George Hayes anyway, were involved with some of the early pits like Bankwell and what have you, down towards Todmorden up the Cliviger Valley. Now, if we have a look at where he was, his birth certificate, if you know what I mean, young Joseph, it's interesting. Right, the first entry there, Matthew and Mary, there's his mother, Joseph, and where was their abode? Bankwell. And that's where one of the early pits was, Bankwell, round about Portsmouth. That's an interesting aside, isn't it? So let's get into James, who was the manager up at Burnt Hills. If we look at the 1861 census there, where do we find him? Oh, there's Burnt Hills, set aside from, it's actually set aside from Cotton Row. And there we've got him, James Joblin, head, underlooker at coal mine. And he's 39 years old there, and he's actually living, it says, at Burnt Hills, which must be where the pit is. So that's 1861, and Paddy said his house dates from 1880. So there must have been some other form of dwelling there at the time. And if you look, there's not only him living there. Look at all the other different families. There's one family head up there, another family head there. That's 2 houses. And again down there. So that's 3 houses there at Burnt Hills at that particular time. And 10 years later, in 1871, well, he's still there, colliery manager, along with his wife and his daughter, living at Burnt Hills in 1871. So he left within the next 10 years and went elsewhere for the same firm. And there we are, 1881, and he's actually living on Ganna Lane. Again, he's still colliery manager. So was he working at Ganna pit at that time? I'd have to look on the inspector's reports just to find out. There's his assistant colliery manager there, who just happens to be John, his son. Hey, if your dad's in the right job, my goodness me, that's good, isn't it? And here we have 1891, and he's living at 3 306 on Ganna Lane, and by this time, he's retired, living on his own means. And that's the 1891 census, round about March. And sadly, James died in the December. So, yeah, he certainly had a long and eventful career in the local coal mining industry, as did his sons and his brothers, his nephews. Yeah, they were a massive family in the local coal mining industry.
What could be when everything it should be might be just behind the door? What my heart's been looking for. Something about darkness, there's no shape to judge. If you can't see it, forget what it was. All that's left is what you imagine. Yesterday's gone, neither triumphant or tragic. One deep breath.